I'll be popping bottles, sparkles and champagne. VIP my section, royalty looking sexy, you know that be my thing.
What's up, everybody? And today we're taking a look at the Sonic the Hedgehog Jakks Pacific Collector's Edition Shadow. And before we get into the figure itself, we will take a look at the packaging. And the packaging is pretty huge, so I'm gonna have to remove my phone. Yes, I do reviews on my phone, so you have this sticker up here that says customize your very own figure, which is gonna kind of be a little bit of a scam. I'll go into why that is, but you got a nice look at Shadow right here on the front of the box. On the side here, you got another look at Shadow right there, and on the back you got a picture of the figure itself with all the stuff it comes with. And by all the stuff, I mean really not that much. Then this side, more pics of the figure and whatnot. There's really nothing on the bottom at all except for a picture of Shadow. Then at the top, you do get a window to see into the figure. And what's really nice is it has this magnetic cover, so when you open it up, you can see a nice picture of the figure inside, and you get a nice little picture / screenshot from Sonic X Shadow Generations, which this figure is actually based off of. So, without further ado, let's open them up and just experience the figure itself. The figure will speak for itself, pretty much. And here's the figure himself. And you know the drill. First off, we're going to take a look at the details and the paintwork of this Shadow the Hedgehog Collector's Edition figure, and then we'll move on to the other stuff. So, first off here, I think it's just really cool that we got a Collector's Edition Shadow. They really haven't made a whole lot of figures within this Collector's Edition, which kind of sucks because I feel like we could get a lot of really cool figures. But the one thing about this figure is that the only thing that really sucks about it, and I'll talk about it later, is that it's kind of hindered by the release of Shadow X Sonic Generations. So this figure is specifically based on that, even though you could technically just use this as a regular modern Shadow, and no one would bat an eye. The only unfortunate thing is there's really not a whole lot with it, and I will go over that. But as far as details do go, his air shoes are painted pretty decent. There is some mistakes like there, and there are some little black splotches on parts of my figure, and also the underside is a little bit bland, to be honest. But I do overall like the sculpt work that is put into it. I also wish that the yellow sections that they did do were gold, like an actual gold, because it just looks a little bit unsightly. Yeah, I feel like maybe the paintwork could have been a little bit better since it is a $50 collector's figure. But, I mean, overall the sculpt work is really good. It's just, there's a couple errors here and there, at least on mine. Paintwork is a little bit off in some places, like, I don't know what's going on there. Got his little stripes painted up pretty well. And then as far as the glove area goes here, a little bit off on the cuffs there, but nothing too crazy or major. It's stuff that you'd really have to look for, but there are some things that I didn't really have to look for that were a little bit of a disappointment. Overall, he's done really nicely. I love the sculpt work for his hair tuft there. And then, going around towards the back here, nothing too crazy on the back. A lot of nice sculpt work going on, though. He is a little bit of a wobbly guy, and I know some other YouTubers, like Teeter the OG, called him fragile. I don't think he's necessarily fragile. I just think he's just so skinny that he wobbles. Because, I mean, he stands up really well. And, he feels good in the hand and everything. At least for me. But he's a very nice looking figure, at least in my personal opinion. And then we'll go over the face here. The face, I think, is done pretty well. I love that this is, even though this could break off, his nose could break off, I'm glad it's not soft rubber, because some of the Jakks figures with the soft rubber, that it just breaks a little easier. Not a huge fan of how they painted his eye things here. They kind of painted them just a little bit weird, in my opinion. They should have been like a little bit more sharper and a little bit more actually on the edge of the eye itself. Bit of a strange move that they did. There's a little bit of scuffage, and this is right out of the box. I just took it right out of the box, messed with it for a little bit, and then now I got started on this review. But there's a little bit of scuffage there, which is a little unsightly. And then coming towards the back here, he has a lot of like mold lines and stuff like that, which kind of sucks because, I mean, he has this big mold line over here, and then, yeah, I just feel like he maybe could have been painted a little bit better. I feel like these are a little bit too over the edge here. They should be more in. Then you got this like paint mark right here, which is just, that's not really ideal. And some of these like strange like marking like splotch areas. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's like paint chipping or what. It's a little bit strange. And then I noticed this whole quill here is like flattened. Like you see how these ones are all spiky and all perfectly fine. This one's like flattened, and it looks like it was like broken off or something. I don't know what is up with that quill, but that is just very, very, very strange. But you know, other than that, I really do enjoy this figure, and I think it's a very nice looking mold, and it looks pretty damn good to you know, Shadow's design and look, at least from Generations apparently. You know, could use some extra paint apps here and there. Maybe I'll go in and kind of spice this figure up myself. Or I might not. I'm not too sure. But, I mean, he does look pretty great. So, aside from having some problems here and there, overall, he's a really nice looking figure. But it's about time we take a look at his accessories, because he does come with a pretty decent amount. So, first off, for hands, you do get, you know, out of the box, you have him equipped with this kind of open, grippy hand and this fist. And, sadly, the other two hands that you only get is another fist and another kind of splayed out hand. And as for other accessories, you do get this little clip thing, which I honestly don't recommend that you use because this thing is really, really, really loose, and these clasps don't move, so you have to kind of squeeze the figure in, and it's kind of flimsy, so this might break, and this is honestly a little bit loose. There's only a little bit of give to it, but yeah, you get that, and then you also get the display base, which also has some controversy, considering that the promo pics show this as being painted with gold, but it's kind of like this flat beige-ish, kind of like emulating gold kind of look, and I guess this is from like the lobby or something from the Generations game. I mean, it's a cool, nice display base, but it's kind of hollow, and I know the bottom here is for you to just, you know, take some of the accessories here and store the accessories in, which, you know, I guess is kind of cool that you can, you know, do all this and display accessories in and whatnot, but kind of really don't get a lot of accessories, which kind of sucks. So yeah, it's a little sucky, but it's nice to have the this, you know, the storage capabilities. But overall, it's kind of a hollow base, and feels a little, slightly small. Yeah, but you can take the actual little stand thing here and plug that in to the actual thing there, and that will like hold him up when you have his other accessory on, which I will talk about right now. Because the last little bit of accessories that you get with him are, of course, the Doom wings. Now, these things are pretty big. On camera, these parts are coming up as like a purplish, but they're like a very strange purpley black. Yeah, I mean, these things are really painted pretty well, and sculpted pretty well. I really do like the kind of gradient they got going on here. And then I really do like the sculpt work. Kind of reminds me of the Venom wings from the Null and Venom 2-pack, which I don't have, but I would kind of like to get someday. Yet a very nice sculpt with these wings here. Reminds me of just a symbiote. which is kind of crazy. They gave Shadow basically a symbiote, which is just wild. But you do have 1 point of articulation right here on the actual wing itself. And these wings are pretty dang huge, and they're pretty cool. And then you do get some articulation right here, and that's pretty much it for the articulation. So you do get 2 of those Doom wings, and then along with the Doom wings, you get the connector piece that goes into his back, which also has a nice little gradient going on here, which looks pretty cool. And so to incorporate the Doom wings here, basically you just come here to the back. You're gonna want to take off the back piece here. Oops. So technically you can consider his quills an accessory, I guess. But you just kind of take that back piece off, and then these will just pour in with the holes right there, and they should just go right on in. So there they are. And then here we have the Doom wings, and those will just peg in like so. Hopefully they peg in pretty easily, not too terrible. It's cool to have a Shadow X Sonic Generations figure, but I do kind of wish that maybe, and of course here he is with those Doom wings, which those things are just huge. I do kind of wish maybe it was just a regular Shadow, you know, take the Doom wings out, maybe put in some extra accessories, because believe it or not, that's it for the accessories. Yeah, you really don't get a lot with this figure. When I said that, you know, that he comes with quite a bit of accessories, I kind of lied. I was just kind of trying to be sarcastic in a way. But yeah, you really don't get a lot. You just get 2 basically pairs of hands, fists and the open hands, a display base that was kind of falsely advertised, a stand thing, little clear stand thing that honestly kind of sucks, and then you get these big Doom wings. So no face plates, because I know the other collector's figures that they had, you know, they came with face plates to give different expressions. They came with a lot more hands, and they even came with some, you know, small accessories to, you know, accommodate the figure. Would have been nice if we could have got, you know, a Chaos Spear hand, where you had it like this and just had like a Chaos Spear coming out of it. Would have been nice if we got like an Emerald and then maybe like 2 more face plates. Could have this angry expression, could have a frowning expression, and then could have like a more like yelling expression, or just something else. Maybe a side-eye expression would have been nice. It just really would have been nice to have a, you know, actually, you know, customizable Shadow figure that, you know, fell more in line accessory-wise too with the other collector's figures. And honestly, I am kind of hoping maybe they come back to this guy, but I'll talk about some of that stuff later. But it does look pretty fire with the Doom wings on, and you can like splay them out like pretty big. Yeah, I mean these wings are so huge. It's like going off screen. They're really cool. It's just, you know, it's something new to me for, you know, this character and everything, because, you know, I've grown up loving Shadow. Shadow's one of my favorite characters of all time. Considering if you guys have seen my Shadow collection, I have quite a bit. But yeah, so it's just, you know, it's a bit new to me, so I kind of was hoping for a more grounded Shadow figure, but overall, I mean, I think they're kind of cool. So with accessories out of the way, let's talk about his articulation. So as for the articulation for Shadow the Hedgehog here, he's pretty decently articulated. As far as his head goes, he can't look up or down at all, but he can swivel his head pretty much a full 360. His arms have a butterfly joint, so they can go forward pretty much about that far, and back a decent little bit. His arms can go up about that far and back down. You could do a full 360 rotation. Has a bicep swivel, single jointed elbow that goes about 90 degrees, and of course there is, you know, rotation at that joint as well. And then as for the wrists, they do hinge and swivel around pretty much like Marvel Legends. And then he has like a waist joint, but it doesn't really do an ab crunch. Kind of crunches back just a little bit, but not forward like at all. So it kind of really is just kind of more of a, you know, a waist swivel. As for the legs, they can kick forward about that far, and kick back pretty much about that far, and they do turn at that joint too as well. And there is a thigh cut And you do have a single joint at the knee, which is about 90 degrees, and that joint does move and swivel as well. And then as for the foot, it can go up. Come on. It can go up. There we go. About that far. It can go down about that far. And then you do have some ankle tilt with it. So he has similar articulation to the movie figures, which is pretty great because those movie figures have amazing articulation. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was moving around the joints, I realized the figure is leaking. What is that? That is weird. There's like some weird like stuff coming out of it. That is strange. But with articulation out of the way, let's move on to a pose test. You guys enjoyed that little pose test, and now it's time to take a look at the scale of this Ultimate Collector's Edition type of shadow figure. So, starting off, we'll go with the smallest shadow figure I have, which is this little dangler that's missing the keychain. So you see how he looks next to the little dangler. And then next up, we have the Lego Shadow the Hedgehog minifigure, and you can see how he looks next to a little Lego version of himself. And then of course here he is next to my custom, not yet finished, but will be finished quite soon, Lego Sir Lancelot Shadow. See how he looks next to him. And then the next smallest one I have here is of course the McDonald's Shadow. So there he is next to the McDonald's Shadow there. And then moving on, next smallest I have is of course the well, I have a lot more smaller ones, but I'm not going to do a bunch of just random ones. But here's the 2.5 inch movie Shadow. And then getting up a little bit more in the scale department, here he is next to the regular standard Jakks Shadow figure there. Just see, how they look next to each other. And then moving on, next to up is, I wonder what would be next up. Because I have a bunch of shadow figures next to me. I want to make sure I get them all in scale. It probably would be my custom Werehog Shadow. So there's Werehog Shadow next to the Collector's Edition. And then probably next up would definitely have to be the movie Light Up Shadow. That's how they look next to each other, almost at the same scale. And then next, I will show off the Sir Lancelot Shadow. So that's how he looks up next to the Jazzwares Sir Lancelot. And then next up, here he is next to the Sonic Prime Shadow. That's how they look next to each other. And then for the final one, the last ever kind of bigger scale shadow figure that was, pretty decently posable would probably have to be the Superposer Shadow from technically the Sonic X design. Now, they actually look pretty fairly, I wouldn't say in scale, but close to it. He's definitely a little bit bigger. I kind of always underestimate the size of the Superposer Shadow. Absolutely love that figure. If you guys don't have the Jazzwares Superposer Shadow, absolutely get it. It is an amazing figure. Absolutely phenomenal. And just real quick, I did kind of forget I did have another Shadow. Here he is next to the Jazzwares little 4-inch, not 4-inch, is it 4-inch? I don't know. But here he is next to the little Jazzware Shadow. So you can see how they look right next to each other. But that is pretty much it for the scale. Overall, amazing figure, but let's get into the final thoughts. So, I'm going to be completely and brutally honest with my final thoughts on this action figure. Shadow the Hedgehog is one of my favorite characters of all time. I think he's just, super cool and just a really well-written character. And I'm glad he's getting his spotlight, with this figure and being more pushed into the mainstream because he deserves it. He's an amazing character, sometimes even better than Sonic. But to be honest, this figure could have been better. I remember when they released the, promotional images for this figure and everything, and it was announced, I was super excited. And, they didn't show a whole lot about this figure, and I assumed that was maybe just because they wanted to maybe, reveal those other stuff later on, but unfortunately, he just does not come with a lot of accessories, and that is my main issue with him. Probably my only issue with him. There are the paint defects and whatnot, but, I get that with pretty much every figure nowadays, so I kind of expect things at mass retail to have some sort of defect. It's just a matter of, can I get the absolute most decent looking one to have in the collection? But he does not really come with a lot of accessories. It would have been nice to get some, maybe one more set of hands, a Chaos Emerald, or even the Shadow the Hedgehog logo, to have in his hand to recreate that kind of, statue pose that he had with the collector's edition for the Generations game. And then maybe, obviously, some more faceplates, because you're kind of only stuck with this one expression, which kind of sucks, because it would have been nice to get more expressions with him. Overall, I think the articulation is absolutely great. Definitely probably could have done without the Doom Wings and just given us more accessories, but they could have also just maybe given us the Doom Wings, more accessories, and just gave him a higher price point, and I would have been fine with that. But yeah, as I said, the articulation is really great. He seems to really stand on his own, too, so I don't really need a stand for him, which is also great. I do think the display base is pretty cool, although it would have been nice if it was actually painted gold like the promotional images. One thing I will say, though, is getting the back quills taken out of his back is a bit of a pain. But overall, I really enjoyed the figure. That is pretty much it for my review of him. Make sure to follow my socials, my Insta, and since TikTok is back up, follow the TikTok. And I will see you guys in the next video, probably when I do another custom.